Liz, I'm just going to confront you with something that seems obvious to me, but maybe not to our viewers and listeners yet. But I noticed there's been a name change of the company, and I'm wondering why.
Yeah. So Carrot Top Industries, we've changed our name to Freedom and Glory. And, my dad, Dwight, our first guest on the show, he started this company in his attic in Chicago, and he always knew he wanted to sell flags. But he didn't think he could make enough, just selling flags. So he called the company Carrot Top Industries. Also, he had red hair. But 45 years later, the name doesn't reflect kind of who we are. And so as we listen to customers, we realize it's not just about selling flags. It's about the moments they mark. And I think Freedom and Glory really puts words to that.
Oh, it really does. And you're right. The flag symbolizes an awful lot to most people, and they always have a story behind it, why they feel the way they feel. Would you mind sharing? Do you have a customer or two that you might be able to tell us a little bit about what they're saying about the new name?
Yeah. So the last year, I've really talked to a lot of customers because I was nervous about changing the name. And I think, a lot of them have always said, wow, Carrot Top Industries, it's so unique.
Yeah.
But they get, it's confusing to older folks who know the comedian. They'll say, are you related to the comedian at all? And for people who aren't aware of the comedian, it just doesn't align. They don't think of flags when they think of those words. And so I think, I'll tell a story about, I talked to a customer of ours in Wisconsin. He, for 25 years, he was a police officer. He retired, and he went to his wife and said, I feel like I have a calling. I want to own a funeral home, which I thought was so interesting and unique, just even that. But he, has brought this program, I guess, to his funeral services where, if you're a veteran, if you're a member of civil service, if you served in the EMS, he'll fly that flag during the ceremony. And he even flies a flag for if you're donating your organs. And he said it's a little thing, but it's one of the best things he's done for his business. And just, the people that come up to him and say, thank you for honoring, whatever, my family member, by this loved one. I think it's just that little thing that, like I said, it makes a big difference.
Well, you've talked about that too. A little spark can create big change. In fact, many of the guests that are on the program have done the very same thing. Why do you think that is? Where does that come from?
Yeah. So for me, I grew up playing a lot of sports. I was super competitive. I loved and still love winning. And, I have the honor of being recruited to play field hockey at UNC. And when I got there, it was the first time in my life where I wasn't the best one there. This was a team of people made up of the best from their own high schools. And that was really hard for me, I think, to kind of transition to that. And my coach told me about an analogy of a drop of dye in a bucket of water. And that has really impacted me, in how I thought about what's a different way that I can add value to a team besides, being the top scorer. And, that's where this analogy kind of comes from, is the idea that even a small action can produce a lasting change. And I think, that's a lot of what our customers do, is these small determined actions that kind of ripple out.
Well, how does your dad feel about this?
Yeah. So,
no, honestly, well, you can tell me how he feels.
Yeah.
But, everybody knows Carrot Top. Anything changing besides the name, or is the same?
So my dad is so supportive. When I took over, he's always been like, Liz, I get it. The name's confusing. If you want to change it, you have my full backing. And he's been a part of this whole honestly like almost a 2-year journey. We wanted to come up with something that really had a story behind it that meant something to both he and I. I mean, I think for him, building the business, he wanted to do just what I just talked about. He wanted to have an impact on people, and he felt like, the decisions that he made were to impact his employees and impact the customers he wanted to touch. So I love that this kind of brings my story together with his legacy, because that was really important to me. And in terms of, what's staying the same, what's changing, I mean, everything that matters is staying the same. So, those folks that same family ownership, same people that take the orders and are flag pros that really care, same people picking and packing the orders, the same American made quality, that's all staying the same. So just changing the name that finally, says what we've always believed.
Well, I appreciate you sharing. I think it's a fabulous name. The comedian's a little upset.
I know.
But other than that, I think this is wonderful.
Thank you.